So with that, it is 6:01 PM on Tuesday, July 2nd, 2024, and I'll call this meeting of the Barre City Council to order. Mr. Manager or members of the council, are there any adjustments to the agenda?
So, Mayor, I have one that actually just came up from checking my email after my last meeting, and we got approval by A&R of our supplemental environmental project for the assurance of discontinuance that we executed earlier, late last year. The reason I bring it up is because the supplemental environmental project has to be funded by July 8th. We won't have a meeting before then. I'm wondering if we can do a warrant. I don't have an actual warrant, except I have an amount that perhaps the council could approve as part of the warrant. Is
We can actually amend the warrant. Who is the payee?
This would be to Friends of the Winooski. They are the ones implementing the project on behalf of Barre City.
Okay, and what is the amount?
$47,812.
Even.
Yes, correct.
And the date on that would be today, as with the rest of the warrant.
Today would be the best.
Okay, so what we'll do, Madam Clerk, we'll just add that to item 4A. We'll actually add that to the warrant list if there's no objection from the council. And I'll have to pencil that in because I already signed that for you. I'll do that at some point during the meeting. Any other adjustments to the agenda, council?
I'm sorry, that was 47K for the A&R.
Friends of the Winooski, yeah.
So the assurance of discontinuance.
Yep.
Everyone okay with that when we get there?
fine.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other adjustments to the agenda, council? None? So we will move along under item 3, visitors and communications. Anyone wishing to address the council regarding an item that is not on the agenda? Okay, I don't see anyone, so we'll move along to the consent agenda. Council, we are approving the minutes of the regular city council meeting of Tuesday, June 25th, 2024, and a special city council meeting that was called on Thursday, June 27th, 2024. Just like to address briefly the special meeting. I believe it was a constituent who emailed all of us and called it the meeting nobody knew about. Yeah, she's 100% correct. It was a rather mundane meeting. We had I think half a dozen, 6, I believe, liquor licensees who were confused by the new Department of Liquor Control process. And so they had gotten their paperwork in, but as council knows, they hadn't gotten their payment in, and they were going to lose their liquor license on Sunday and would not have been able to sell alcohol until Wednesday. So rather than inconvenience them, at the request of the clerk, I called a special meeting of the council, and you all made that meeting on a Thursday afternoon at 4 o'clock and approved that. So thank you for that. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
It was a tie.
It was an even tie.
Goes to, we'll
Here,
give
we
it to Councilor Guston,
Here.
and
Wilson moved and
we'll give you the
seconded.
next one, Councilor Stockwell. So we'll give it to Councilor Guston, seconded by Councilor Stockwell. Is there any other discussion, council? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, you're muted. Would you mind raising your hand, Councilor Spalding?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Did we have anything? I don't believe we had anything under the clerk's office licenses and permits, did we? I apologize. I forgot to ask.
I do. I have a firework permit for a Barre Partnership set for July 27th for the Homecoming Heritage Festival to be set off at the historical lawn.
And we're going to, and I apologize, council, I totally botched that one. So I'm gonna claim a mulligan and a do-over on that one. So we are approving the minutes. Clerk just described the license that you will be approving. We'll be authorizing the manager to execute contract. Do you have any contracts to execute?
Not this week.
This week? Okay, there are no contracts. We will ratify the council's 625-24 approval of a $108,000 contract with Exum for water mixers. We will authorize a quitclaim deed to merge the city-owned lot with the cow pasture, and I think under charter, mayor has to sign that quitclaim.
Yes.
So, and authorize the mayor to sign. Set the 2024 tax due dates. I'll ask you to describe that in just a moment, and approve the 2024-2025 council appointments that were in your packet. Ma'am, so why don't you, if you don't mind, just briefly describe the process and what people will be doing for the property tax bills?
Certainly. Currently, the assessors are holding appeal hearings for the new assessments that were done this year. And in order to get the final grand list, those hearings have to be completed and determinations need to be concluded. Once that is done, the final grand list can be launched, and we will be using for the interim tax bills the state set education tax rate. We will send out the first round of tax bills with a due date of September 16th, which is on a Monday, with an insert explaining that there will be a second final bill coming as soon as a school budget is finalized. But to round out and to just summarize the due dates, September 16th, November 15th, February 17th, and May 15th. And we're hoping to color code the second round of bills just so they are, they can be visually separated from the first round. So the first round will be one color and the second one will be the final color.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions? Yes.
Yeah, I do have a question on the tax bills. Seeing and noting that it has been changed, this is our 4th year in a row, per the memo that it had been changed repeatedly previously during COVID times, because otherwise it defaults to the charter's dates. Is there virtue in exploring a charter change to adjust the dates to what has been working for the last 4 or 5 years, or do we think this is the end of a bubble of unusual circumstances for those dates?
I can't determine if this is the end of the bubble of circumstances. I would dare to guess that the September 16th does work for more people. But that could be something that Nicholas could.
Yeah, and I think that, and I see Janet's on, she might have opinions on this too, and we might be thinking the same thing, but having the full-time assessors, I think is probably gonna get us back to a more regular cycle. Because I know a lot of in previous years also, the delays were also part of just the lodging part of it. And so I think having a full year of Larry and Carly will probably get us closer to what was intended, is my guess. Janet, and I don't want to put Janet on the spot, but she may be thinking something similar.
Sure, you're absolutely correct, City Manager Starley Castro. We have seen several years of it being delayed, and in the memo I indicated to all of you why it was delayed this time. I think it would be easier that once the assessors get one full year under their belt, that they won't be beholden to the statutory dates. Excuse me, they could actually lodge earlier, so then it would line up with our charter dates.
Awesome. Any other questions, Council? Okay, so the motion was made by Councilor Guston. It was seconded by Councilor Stockwell. Still okay with that? Thank you so much. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
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 And those opposed, thank you. And those opposed, thank you very much. Motion is approved. Under item 4A, Council, need a motion to approve the city warrants as amended from the week of July 3rd, 2024.
So moved.
Snuck right in there, didn't you? Thank you very much. Any discussion, folks? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, thank you very much.
I'm abstaining.
Yes, I'm sorry. No,
Thank
your
you.
abstention is noted.
Thank you.
City Clerk and Treasurer's report.
Okay, I'm going to speak briefly about the election information coming from City Hall. 599 absentee ballots were sent out for the August primary. We currently have had 48 returned to the office. Sample ballots are available to be viewed on the Barre City website, in addition to some simplified directions on how to cast your ballot and how to make sure you're getting the correct ballots in the proper envelopes and returned so your ballot can count. Because we don't want people to have a ballot not count because of, they just did not get the correct ballot in the proper envelope. So it's barrecity.org, and you'll see all three parties, and you will see the brief directions on how to cast that ballot. Secondly, the city clerk's office, not the entire city hall, but the city clerk's office is closed July 4th and that Friday, July 5th. So please make plans to visit the office either tomorrow or Monday if you would like to cast an absentee ballot in the near future. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions?
Mayor? Mr. Mayor, I have a
Oh,
question.
I'm sorry.
So for people who are submitting absentee ballots, is there a way for them to look online to see that the ballot has been returned and accepted so that they would know whether their vote has counted?
Unfortunately, we document this on a state website, and only a select few have access to that state website. Currently, we are not to open those ballots until July 15th to see if anything is even correct inside the return envelope. July 15th is when we can actually start opening the envelopes.
Okay,
But
so,
they are more than welcome to call, and we can inform them of the date that we received it.
but what you're saying is you will only be able to confirm that you've received it, but not that their vote has been counted and that they've done it correctly. Is that what you're saying?
We're not currently documenting in the system that they have been received yet. We are going to, because there's only a very few options on the state website. You can either accept it as a return ballot, or it comes in as an invalid ballot. So we can't just go in and just say we received it when it possibly could not be a valid ballot. That has to be a determination before we start entering it.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm even more confused. Are you
Well, I'm
able,
I'm right with you, Counselor, so
are
go
you
for it.
able to, you're either able to confirm that you've received it and it's correct, or you can't you can either say we did not receive it at all. Those are your two options.
Once we are able to start opening envelopes, we'll be able to either just say, yes, we received it, and that would be a valid ballot,
Okay,
or we would mark invalid. It obviously would determine that we did receive it, but it would also determine that it was invalid.
okay, so it sounds like you can mark it, we've received it, your vote counts, or we received it, it's invalid, or we haven't received it. Those are
Correct,
the
but
three
yeah,
options.
those wordings aren't there, but yes, that's
Okay.
basically, yeah.
Okay, so people can log into the state website to determine whether, no?
No.
Okay.
We as clerk officials can log into the website. So they would actually have to call us and
Okay.
ask, have you received my ballot?
Okay,
And if, yes, and if, we were looking at it, we could easily tell them if it was a valid ballot or not.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just a question for the clerk. Once you update their status, will it be reflected on their My Voter Page website on the Secretary of State's office? So could they log into their own voter page to determine if their ballot has been
And
received?
honestly, I do not know if the two are tied together. I do not know that. That's a good question. I can look into that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I believe it is tied in together, that when you submit from the clerk's office that you've received it, it'll then update in the Secretary of State's website as well, and then they can look on their My Voter page and see whether their ballot's been counted or not. It's been my experience in previous years. I don't know if it's currently happening with that primary, but in previous years, that's been my experience with that page.
Thank you.
Okay.
While you look into that, why don't you just, maybe we'll clarify that next week.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome, that would be great. Any other questions, folks? Hearing none, we'll move on to the city manager's report. Oh, I'm sorry, you have nothing under liquor control or cannabis.
No, I
correct?
do not.
Thank you. City manager's report?
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of things for the council and the public. One, just great couple of days at the pool. The weather hadn't been great, but certainly been better the last couple of days. And pool director's very happy. Crew's working out great. Just been, had a couple of days there with my own kids and just a great time there. So I encourage people to show up. There's now pool passes available at Aldrich Library. So thank you to the Rotary Club and the Kiwanis Club. They make a great donation. Those passes can be checked out at the library. So thank you to those two service clubs. So if there's a family in need of a day at the pool, and they can certainly go get a pass at the library. We will be closed July 4th, and that's due to staffing. It's a lot of the young people that are working there had made plans before they realized they're going to be lifeguards. So we will not be open July 4th. I'll update that on the website, but otherwise the pool is maintaining regular hours with our great new crew. We are, DPW has finished with the paving of Farwell and Merchant, and so if you haven't been over there, I encourage you to drive it. It's a great new drive. I've gone out of my way just to drive on it a couple times. So they did great work. They're very happy with this new contractor. They are working, they move a lot. They're quick. They're keeping our crews busy. And the product has been great, according to TJ, who's been on site. So very happy about that. If you haven't been that way, go check it out. We are, Carol Dawes's transition contract is expiring on Friday, and she will be transitioning again to a TIF role with us. So as many of you know, Carol was really working, our point of contact on TIF. So she will be hired not as a city employee, but as a contractor. And she will be doing exclusively TIF work for us. So that's great because she's been really leading a lot of that work, and she'll be doing things like preparing for the annual report, the audits, those sort of administrative type functions. And she continues to participate in the action team that's working on projects. So Carol will be wrapping up Friday as sort of in a transition role on the staff side, and she will start as a contractor side in that TIF role right after that expires. Just want to we covered this at the beginning of the meeting, the A&R supplemental education, supplemental environmental project. So thank you for approving that amendment to the warrants. I just want to, huge shout out to Friends of the Winooski, who's really been managing this process on our behalf with A&R. It hasn't been an easy process by any means, but they have, the council received a presentation from Friends of the Winooski last, I think it was last spring maybe. But just want to remind folks that they're going to be providing some public information about E. coli in the Stevens branch through some testing and education. And then they will be doing some training of city staff in wastewater management, which will be open to operators throughout the state. So really great to have that part of the AOD settled. And so that is moving forward. We put out a notice on Facebook and the website about, unfortunately, some people impersonating assessors in the city. So we've gotten reports about that. And I know the Times-Argus covered it as well. So hopefully people are getting the word about it. Just the bottom line is our assessors will be, have an ID badge. They'll most of the time have a business card. Sometimes they may not have one with them, but the ID badge they will always have. So make sure you're asking to see that ID badge for sure. Their cars are identified with the city seal, so you can always see that as well. And right now they're focused on streets off of Washington. So it's not totally out of the question that if you're not off of Washington, you may get somebody visiting for a permit or something else or flood-related assessment. So it wouldn't be completely eliminate the fact that it's a city person, but it's primarily focused right now off of Washington. But the key things to do is always ask for an ID. I mean, it's good practice for anybody coming to your house to work, right? But ask for an ID, and you can see the badges on their car. If that fails, you can call City Hall, and we'll verify the person's identity. And then the last thing, which I probably get more discussion, but just want to, I think you all know, the city was awarded almost $3 million for Prospect Heights. which was just a great, great news that we received last week, and very excited to get this moving forward. I think it just a real big boost for a project that has a lot of promise for Barre. And so I know we've gotten more creative in subsequent rounds of this application. I think that certainly paid off. So very, very happy. And I know there's a lot of partners that went into it, but BADC and MA really worked really hard on the content of the application. And Janet, who's on, took a lot of time with the actual submission, which was also a pretty intensive process. So yeah, just a lot of great work all around on that grant. Really excited to see that moving forward.
Questions? Yes, Councilor Stockwell.
What's up with Blackwell, and how long will it take for Blackwell to come back, do you think? Blackwell's closed, they're doing something with the, they're doing something.
They're doing
Who's
something
all
on Blackwell.
sticking?
Yeah, I don't have an update on Blackwell, but I will get back to the council and we'll post on something if there's an update. It could be, was it just today, Councilor, or was it?
Oh, no, it's been a couple days.
Okay, I'll double check with DPW on how long they'll be there.
Councilor Wozniak.
On the folks going door to door, the assessing.
Yeah.
Are they instructed to like do the knock on the door first and see if the homeowner's home before
Yeah.
they start walking around?
Yes.
Okay, I was talking to somebody who had the experience where they like went behind the house first without talking to them, so I just wanted to. see if that was standard procedure.
They make that, yeah, they're trying to make that initial contact, yeah. And they have a spiel about when they make
Yep.
the contact, but yes. Yeah.
And then the only other one was looking at the city appointments, realizing that we don't currently have a Barre Partnership Council liaison.
Yes,
It's Michael, right?
it was, yeah, Councilor Booton.
So I just think that, that's not a term that's set to expire until next year, but I think we should fill it sooner. And not to volunteer anybody, but Councilors Spalding, Guston, and Shambell are currently not liaisons to any of our other ones.
I'll do that.
Okay, works for me. But anyway, well, whatever we do.
Yeah.
Fill that one in.
Anything else?
Nope, I'm good, thank you.
So, oh, yes, Councilor.
You can go first.
No, by all means.
2 questions and a comment. First question, Nicholas, how many people is the pool pass for?
I think it's 2 adults and I believe up to 4 kids on the registration, on the application form.
Okay.
We'll work with
I
families.
mean, as
if
far
they-
as the ones at the Aldridge Library.
Oh, they're the standard, yeah, so I think it's 2 adults and 4, but we'll work with people. I think if there's a family unit, we're not gonna try to exclude.
Sure. Second question, we had talked about a crosswalk at Allen Street a couple weeks ago. Was there any plans to, like,
No, I know it's on Brian's radar. I don't have any updates on it for you, but I'll make sure we have something for next meeting.
and just last a comment, the BADC bringing in some more bacon for the city. At this point, up over $6 million between that, the Prospect Heights and Sanders earmark.
Nine.
Nine.
But who's counting?
Well, I didn't want to,
Transmission line, the 2 Sanders earmarks, the transmission line and the auditorium.
just
We're
a huge,
closing in on 9.
huge compliment to them and to MA and for all the work that they're constantly doing behind the scenes as the council liaison to that group. Just really, really pleased to see that constantly paying dividends to our city.
Awesome. Anything else, folks? So people are actually impersonating an assessor? That'd be
Yeah.
like impersonating the guy that serves court papers. I mean, why would, so, okay, joke's over. Is there any way to introduce, there's a team of assessors who are, is there any way to publish something? I mean, you know, social media, something, meet your assessors and
Yeah,
just so that people might
I've been
see it and
brainstorming.
maybe recognize.
Yeah, I've been brainstorming with them about other ways to sort of get more certainty about where people can go check. So the IDs are the big one because the IDs have a code that people can scan and it takes you to the website and it's, so that's sort of the easiest way to go, but I've brainstorming other ways we can get the word out about who they are. Part of it is that they have some rotating
And I
staff.
appreciate that, but if someone is apprehensive about someone on the other side of the door,
Yeah.
it's doubtful that they'll put their
Right.
hand out there and scan their card. So if there's something we could do, or just, you know, I know the communication is really hard having, being on the other side of it. They have a schedule to keep, they want to be efficient. But if there's just some way that we could let people know, this is who will be visiting you.
Yeah, and I
that
think we
might
can. I think one of the things I was working through with them is, are we gonna have a pretty set group of staff we're doing? I think they do. They're all contractors, obviously, so, but I think we can get to something like that and publicize it more broadly. They're very nice people, too. That's another way you can tell who they are.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people, you've seen, and I take social media posts with a grain of salt, as we all do, but people are a little bit confused about what's even going on. They don't quite understand it. They don't know what it means. They think in some respects, it's only me for some reason and I'm being targeted. No, everyone will go through the reappraisal. So if we could even perhaps publish something along those same lines and explain to people exactly what's going on. Stowe just went through this. People were freaking out because property values literally doubled. And to give folks a really oversimplified explanation, let's assume everyone's property taxes exactly double. That doesn't mean your taxes are doubling. Your taxes actually wouldn't change at all. Because everyone went up the same amount. Obviously, that's not going to happen. But if we could just explain that to folks, I think it might remove some of the anxiety.
Absolutely.
The manager mentioned the Prospect Heights Project Council. We actually had a meeting on Monday. This Monday, I serve on that board, as does Nicholas, the Board of Directors of Prospect Heights Development, Inc., which is a 501c3 who's been spearheading the project obviously with BADC and May Green and Janet as sort of the leads on that. We talked about next steps. That group will likely be, as we move through the process, understanding what expenses are eligible for the grant, how we move forward, whether it's some sort of public-private partnership, whether it's a city on its own. We're going to be meeting every 2 weeks. So my suggestion, and Nicholas, if you have a difference of opinion, let me know. But I think our suggestion was that the council leave the composition as it is, having Prospect Heights continuing to be the lead on that project. We have so much to do with the city. And quite frankly, what that board has been doing is successful. It's working well, obviously. Remember, that's a city grant. We sometimes, talk about Prospect Heights a lot. That board absolutely recognizes that, that they serve at the direction and control of the city of Barre. And that's why I think that keeping the composition the same will be really helpful, because Nicholas will be able to advise in terms of our procurement process for RFPs, getting an engineering team on board, which will be our next step, and then moving this thing forward. So I'll bring that up. This is not on the agenda, so we'll be talking about that at our next meeting in 2 weeks. Oh, and speaking of which, our next meeting will be in 2 weeks. I know I've been a bit of a slave driver at times, and we've been meeting, but it's a short week this week for folks, and that puts city staff a little bit behind because, as the clerk mentioned, the clerk's office is closed Thursday and Friday. So I think it would be a lot easier on staff if we didn't meet next Tuesday. No objection from anyone? Thank you. All right, that's that. Under new business, council, 8A is approve the ARPA-funded revolving loan fund/trust. I don't see a name next to that, so who's going to launch that?
Angie is here, and Tess can also help. So the council back in April, I believe, had preliminary talked about allocating $250,000 towards a revolving loan fund or trust. And the council had directed the Housing Task Force, which is chaired by Tess, to work with Downstreet to create a proposal for the council's consideration. So this is the follow-up to that. They've been doing a lot of great work and here to present their ideas.
Oh, you stole my thunder.
Oh.
No, I was just going to say that was, thank you all for those who were here, and I know that new people support too, that having the ARPA funding be allocated for revolving loans. And for turning it over to the All In for Barre Task Force, Housing Task Force. It's that group has been a great group to work with. we started out having a full housing task force and then in a little side group called the Creative Housing Task Force. So these are some of the things that we were talking about in the creative part, and now we've put the whole group together. And it's a group of great people, and working with Angie and Cheryl Moyer from Down Street has been really edifying. And I just want to thank the members of the All In for Barre Task Force for their dedication, thoughtfulness, and diligence, and good questions, because it took us 3, hearty and hefty meetings to hammer this out and make this a good proposal. So I'm going to turn it over to Angie.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to answer any questions about the proposal. I think you all have it there in front of you, so I won't go through it in great detail. But what we heard from the task force is that they wanted to be sure that they were serving missing middle. That was really important, that the revolving loan fund would continue to revolve, so that all the loans would be amortized and not deferred, except in the situation where if someone needed to sell their home within 12 months and they had some repairs that needed to be made in order to sell the home. And so what we did is we took what Down Street currently offers the Green Mountain Home Repair Loan Program, and we serve, it's health and safety repairs for homeowners with incomes between 0 and 80% of AMI. And so this proposal expands the scope of work beyond what is available through the current GMHR program, which is federally funded. And it also expands the households who can access that funding. And the way we've structured this is that if someone comes in who qualifies for GMHR, they'll also qualify for these funds, so they could have up to $40,000 rather than our current $20,000 cap. But they, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. In that case, all of the fees would be paid for by Down Street because we have a funding source that takes care of all of those things. If someone comes, an applicant comes and they don't qualify for GMHR, then we've outlined how we envision the different fees, how they would be split up. And then the other piece to note is that any interest that comes in on any of the loans goes back into the loan fund. So whether or not it's, if it was an original GMHR loan where there were no fees, all of that interest will still go back into the Barre City Loan Fund for the portion of the loan that came out of the Barre City Revolving Loan Fund. And then, of course, if it was an original Barre City Revolving Loan Fund loan, those would also go back into the fund. And then I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Yes.
So the folks who would not be eligible for getting the GMHR stuff, that would be the 80 to 120% AMI folk. That's the population that would fit. Okay.
Yes, and there are some scopes of work that GMHR that aren't eligible through GMHR, and Cheryl would be the person who's our homeownership director to really dive down into that if anybody has any questions around that. But those would be the two pieces.
Do you have, I'm just curious, do you have some examples of what scopes of work might not be covered by GMHR that might? That's
the piece I'm not 100% sure about. If it's not a health and safety or code issue, it's possible that GMHR may not cover it. But they would cover your water heater, which may or may not fit in there. So I don't have that piece specifically.
Any other questions, Council? Yes.
So thank you for this. I know I was in most of the meetings to get this ready, and I regret that I had to miss the very last one. I know that one thing we talked a lot at the Housing Task Force while this was getting ready was the use case for this of, say, an older couple getting ready to sell their home and downsize, but needed major code upgrades before they could sell the house, make the house available to different types of lower down payment loans, for example. So I'm glad to see the deferred option here that makes that a little more possible. I'm wondering if you would see flexibility in this, because I can see that scenario being more than 120% of AMI. And I'm wondering what you would think of raising that number a little bit more to make this even more flexible.
This is the city's loan fund. So we don't have any objection
Okay.
on our end. It's totally up to you, and we'll take direction. And one of the things that did come up in the conversations is this doesn't have to be the final. You know, we can start this and say, hey, this actually doesn't work, or this is something that's coming up that we haven't addressed, and we can make those changes, of course, with the council's permission.
Yes.
What happens if someone defaults?
We would, so the home is collateral on a defaulted loan. And if we're not going after someone's home very aggressively, it would probably, again, we would likely come to the council and ask for your advice. I think what we would tend to do is keep the lien on the home, and then when the home sold, the funds would be back in the loan fund.
That's
We have
provided that the home essentially has that equity built in.
Yes, and we do, so we generally, for the GMHR fund, we only take second lien position. And what the Housing Task Force decided was that they would take second lien behind the primary mortgage for this as well, unless GMHR, unless it was a loan that had both GMHR and the Barre City Loan Fund, and then they would take third position. We have a very low default rate for our GMHR loans, and I would expect the same would be true here. I mean, staff work really closely with folks to kind of figure this stuff out.
Okay.
Do you know what the default rate is, Angie, off the top of your head?
Don't off the top of my head, but I can find out for you, Tom.
No, you just said very low. I mean, 5%, 10%, or any idea?
There has not been one default in my time at Downstreet.
Okay. And we would take, so this fund would take a second position, or perhaps even a third, which does leave you with little options in the event of a foreclosure, because let's say there's a $100,000 first mortgage, we've loaned them 20. Our option in the event of foreclosure would be to actually buy out the first mortgage. So we'd have to make a $120,000 investment to, or a $100,000 investment to recover our 20, and then, of course, the subsequent 100.
So your loan fund would not be without risk. But I think generally pretty low.
Amy Gelford has her hand up.
Oh, yeah, I just had one other question. Could you just describe the underwriting process? Like, you know, in terms of a home's equity. In other words, someone has a home that's been flood damaged, and their home is worth, the estimate is $75,000, but they have a $100,000 first mortgage.
So we're not taking out an appraisal as part of this process, so it's not like a bank loan. So we would be going in, generally we have, you know, someone completes the application materials, we do an initial inspection to see what the full scope of work that needs to be completed for the home. If that scope is really extreme, say there's mold all over the basement and first floor, and someone's applying for new windows, we wouldn't make a loan in that situation. We would say, hey, this situation is, we're not going to get this to a livable place with this loan, and this doesn't make sense, and that wouldn't happen. So it's definitely different than a traditional bank coming in who would make sure that there was enough equity in the home. It's not a line of equity to ensure the is that what you're getting at?
Yeah. Well, just even in terms of, credit scoring them, and obviously we wouldn't expect someone who turns to this type of fund to have an 800 credit score, but we wouldn't expect them to have a 3 either, or would we?
That is completely up to the city. I believe the Housing Task Force chose not to use credit as something that they were looking at. We do look at debt to income ratios, so your ability to pay back the loan and then using the home as collateral. That's the way we generally work. Happy to pull credit and look at credit scores if that's a preference for the task force and the council.
But, I mean, don't you think that would be kind of a good idea? I mean, I love the idea of these types of loans, but what if someone is dishonest and they say, and they do make plenty of money, but they also file bankruptcy the month before, and we're getting ready to, what if someone is dishonest? So I think that, looking at the underwriting fee, I think if we could work, a simple credit report, it can tell you a lot about a person's financial history. And
Absolutely happy.
I mean, does council have any objection to that? I'm not saying that we judge someone purely on that, but it provides you, this is the city's money. And I think, to pull a credit report, you probably have that ability now, Angie, with your organization. So I think just to pull a credit report to make sure that someone is being honest and forthright on a loan, I think only makes good sense.
And what I'm hearing
I'm
from you,
sorry.
I'm sorry, what I'm hearing, Tom, is that maybe it's not the score that you care so much about, but the content of the credit report.
Well, it provides you with a means to cross-check representations made on an application. For example, if someone represents that they've never filed for bankruptcy, and then you find out that in fact they are in bankruptcy as you're getting ready to make a loan, I'm saying that the information could be helpful. I'm not saying we necessarily work the score into the evaluation process, but.
So we would need to write the underwriting, so there was some black and white gauge
Right.
there for us. But yes, I can talk to Cheryl about that.
It was 1, 2, and 3 questions. Go ahead, Councilor Deering.
That was essentially my thought process with some of that, like, not necessarily a credit score, but really to be able to see that people have made positive payment histories and not had bankruptcies, not had things that are essentially, to me, red flags. And we want to protect the city's money. We want to make sure that this is a fund that is going to continue to revolve and people can utilize that and not feel that people were dishonest, and we weren't able to continue that in good faith. So I think that with the underwriting process being looking at the applicant, and not necessarily the score in particular, but to see that they've paid their bills on time, that they're not in collections for things that we could see, well, you're showing bad faith in you paying back your credit or whatever you're owed out. So we want to make sure on the city's end that you're going to continue to make payments the way that we need you to.
No, perfectly reasonable.
Yes.
I think to some extent my concerns have been addressed, which is that I'm very uneasy at the prospect of a pure cutoff on credit score, because this is meant to be a flexible option for folks of a lower income level. But I could get on board with a sort of verification process using a credit report instead.
And that's why, and that's what I'm suggesting, is just to make sure that things have been fairly represented on the application. Because, look, we're all thrilled to have this money available, but, we look at $250,000, so how many people might that help? 12, 13, a $20,000 limit, 12 or 13, and honestly, I mean, we just heard about people impersonating assessors, for God's sakes. So I just want to make sure that the people we're helping aren't misrepresenting a material fact, and then that 14th person that we would have loved to have helped, we're not in a position to help them because someone wasn't honest, and all you got to be is honest. Councilor Wazirczak?
Yeah, no, not tying it to specific credit scores, not tying interest rate to credit scores. I'm morally opposed to credit scores. It's all a bunch of capitalism garbage, but I digress. So my question, I want to recognize that Amy's been waiting.
I was going to next.
I do have not about credit scores, different topic. As far as like governance structure or who's approving these loans, do you imagine that each of them comes to the city, to the council individually, and we're approving them?
Oh, Lord,
Do
no.
you think?
We don't want that liability.
No, I don't want that. So that's what was the thought of the task force
So
around
the
that?
task force agreed that Down Street would go through its standard approval process. So there's black and white criteria, someone reviews that, it gets approved. And that we would provide quarterly reports to the council saying, X number of people applied, X number approved, X number were not approved. These were the reasons that folks were not approved.
Thank you.
Perfect. Amy, online.
Yeah, thank you. Amy Gelford, I'm on Foss Street. Yeah, that was one of my questions, was who picks the applicant? Because you're going to get way more than 12 applicants for this. I think anytime a program like this opens up, there's so much unmet need. So you have to think about how you're going to select who are the winners and losers in that. And this is really public money going to private homeowners. So I think you need to think hard about that, and you need to think about how that's going to be done in an equitable way also. I've got a couple picky questions, and I'll just say up front, part of this is coming from me trying to figure out how this is different from what the USDA Rural Development Single Family Housing Repair Loan and Grant Program offers. Because before we spend city money on a new program, is it really offering something different than what's already out there for people? How is area median income calculated? Is that the homeowner's income or is that median household income?
So it is the median household income, not just the owner of record.
Okay, so median household income for Barre City is about 54,000. I'm looking
I
at
don't have
that
the
right?
numbers in front of me, but yes, whatever HUD's calculation is.
Okay.
And it depends on household size as well.
Okay. Yeah, so I was just looking at the census, not at HUD. But it is low in Barre. And so when I look at the 3 interest rate brackets, 30% AMI for Barre is going to be a very low.
So I just want to throw out, Amy, that the AMI is calculated by Washington County, not by Barre specifically, because HUD in Vermont does county calculation. So these will be higher.
Okay, so it's Washington County. Okay, that makes a little more sense to me, because I was going to say these are going to be such low numbers. I don't know how you would it would work out. Okay, so it's Washington County. Okay, and then let's see. I'm a little curious about the prior to a home sale and how that's going to work, because I thought the purpose of this was really to help Barre City people fix their homes and stay in them, not to be used to flip homes or sell them. And like the USDA loan and grant program has a provision that if you're one of the grant recipients and you sell it within 3 years, you got to pay the grant back. My house is a VSHA loan that's partly underwritten by USDA, and there's a provision if I sell it within the first 9 years and I make money off of it, it's prorated that some of that has to go back to USDA, because again, that's not, the purpose is not for development, it's for housing. So can you say a little more about the sale issue?
So this is something that we heard from the task force by numerous people in the task force, that there is an understanding that there are folks in Barre City who are ready to sell their homes. So say they're aging out of their homes, wanting to move on. That was an example that was used frequently. And so but they're unable, the potential buyers are unable to get like FHA loans or maybe USDA loans because there are more rigid restrictions around the condition of the home. And so this is a loan that could help them get the house up to those conditions and make it saleable.
And then, so is there anything about for those who aren't in that sale situation, is there anything about the recipients of the loan having to stay in the home and not just be selling it?
That is not something that we have included, but it can be. Again, it's Barre City's loan.
Okay. I think the other questions got answered. Oh, I just wondered, like, if you've done the math on, if there's this initial kind of dozen or so loans that this could provide, how long it would be before the repayments would provide for another round or another.
It really depends on the debt to income ratio of the individuals taking out the loan. So whether or not this is a 5-year loan or a 10-year loan is about the capacity to repay it. So there's not, until we actually have borrowers, it's hard to estimate. That is something we could add to the reporting, is the terms of the loan. So the city would have a general idea on a quarterly basis around when they would expect to see funds kind of replenish.
And then the last thing was, if I'm reading the fees on the second page correctly, those would come out to maybe 3,500, and I know there's different scenarios there, and that's included in the 20,000 maximum.
So the fee situation, some are included in the 20,000 maximum, but the actual fees to downstreet for the non-amortized or amortized loans would actually come out of the loan fund and be replenished by interest payments over time.
Okay, so initially some of those would come out of that. I forget what the idea was from the ARPA money, the original $200,000 or $250,000.
That's correct.
Okay, so some of that
And
would be.
again, it's Barre City's loan fund. The city and the housing task force could change that, but that's what we determined at the task force.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm just following up on a couple of Amy's points, which I thought were very thoughtful. I would definitely be interested in seeing that reporting as we go along to see at what point the fund is able to start lending out again, thanks to interest payments, because I think some of that would help us guide us as council if we found a grant to add another $50,000 to it, or if it was really moving along nicely, we could consider those things on a different timeline or with different capacity to add to that fund, and that would help us make those decisions. And the second is I had not thought about a sort of immediate repayment with sale of house provision, but I would be interested in hearing what other counselors have to say, but I think that could be a way to revolve the loan a little faster. If it is a situation where someone is using this loan in order to downsize and sell their home, and they could pay it back within a year, I think that would be great, because then we could keep the money moving.
I think that's a great idea. So
That's a
could
current
we,
provision that I think you recommended.
Yeah.
That there's a deferred loan.
That's why it's such a good idea.
I mean,
Deferred-
I think that's a great idea. If we could prioritize that for, let's say, 3 months, where we say for the first 3 months, these are the folks we want to hear from. If you're interested in selling your home, but it requires code upgrades, you're first in line. Because as you said, you get that money revolving faster, but it's really a win-win-win, because you also get a family or a couple in that home and get someone who wants to sell their home and downsize. You facilitate that. So you not only have one winner, the borrower who gets the money and can sell their home, but you've got the buyer of that home who wins as well. So if we could, I don't know how the council feels about that, but if we could prioritize that for just a number of months, I think that would be super. Yes, ma'am.
Actually, Counselor Spalding.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Had her
Councilor
hand up
Spalding. Thank you.
Thanks. I think one of the things that Amy said that was probably piqued my interest, and I'm wondering how we would address it, is if I'm imagining, a young couple comes in and buys a house and there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done and they're going to flip it and they qualify for their household income falls in this. I definitely feel like I can see the potential for, yes, I think fixing up homes and having more homes would be great, but I think having some kind of immediate payment, as Counselor Guston said, would be appropriate. And I also because I don't understand this loan as well, are we trying to do this for people who can't qualify for traditional loans? Is that the point of it? And if they are qualifying for traditional loans, from a bank or some other institution, then are they not then eligible for this? It's my question. Like, can people like sort of double dip, if you will?
So the way this is structured right now, someone could potentially double dip. They could take out a line of credit from the bank, and then they could also access this loan, or vice versa. They get to borrow this money and then also borrow a line of credit from the bank. And this does have lower interest rates and is a little bit simpler than what the bank process would be in some ways.
So is the main objective of this loan, though, to target people who can't get those more traditional loans? Was that the idea behind it?
I will defer to the Housing Task Force on that one.
Yes.
So, yes, pretty much.
Okay.
So really, it goes up to 120% of AMI, which is not very much money. So you're not getting people who have a ton of money. And they may have a house that's kind of a sinking ship. So it's an ability, so there's like probably 3 different groups. One group is people who are older, they want to get out of their house, they can't afford to do the fix up, but fixing it up and putting it on the market would free them up and give them a little money. It would also free up housing in the city, which we sort of desperately need. And another group is if there's a young couple who needs to fix up their house, wants to stay in it or wants to flip it, I still think we're better off because they're not making a ton of money. They don't, and you have to have, if you're looking at their debt to income ratio, it's probably not going to be very impressive. So generally poor people and even middle income people now are struggling with housing costs. This is a way to improve the looks of the city, improve people's housing situations, and maybe move some real estate along. The other thing I wanted to say, which was in response to the mayor's, was that we could target people for the first 3 months, but I think we want to make it a little more widely available. I also think the other thing that's possible for this loan is that we use some of the trust fund money that the city might have, like Prusa, if we can target like families with children, or Semproban annuity. So I think there are other funds to come in that are possible if with the council's agreement. And what we need in the city is some movement around housing, and almost any movement would be good movement.
Councilor Deering.
I think, this warming up to this housing loan fund. Not a huge supporter of it, I'll be upfront. I think that there are a lot of things that could potentially happen in the wrong way. But what I definitely would like to see as someone who is trying to support this is that if somebody is using these funds to flip their house, then when they sell that house, I think the city should be paid back when that house is sold. That, to me, that's responsible. That's what's responsible to our constituents. $250,000 of the city's money is being used. And if we're not getting a return on investment, if we're not helping our city, if we're allowing individuals to come in and just flip houses and say, hey, we have this money set aside, and if you want to apply for it, flip your house and pay us within the terms of your agreement, we're okay with that. And I'm not okay with that. And I think that many people would also not be okay with essentially somebody making a profit to pay back down the road. So I definitely would like, some kind of clause in there. And I think even paying it back within a year, I think is giving someone too much time. That essentially when they sell the house, there should be a much shorter leash in when that money needs to be returned back to the city.
Oh, it needs to be returned at sale. That absolutely is the way it is structured. I'm sorry if that wasn't clear. So it's deferred for up to a year, meaning it's not amortized. People aren't making payments on it because the intent is to sell.
Right.
And that's the only non-amortized loan that's part of the city's loan fund. I mean, GMHR has got some grants and a lot of non-amortized loans.
I definitely see that there are not a lot of opportunities for people who don't have great credit scores, who don't have the typical things that we need from lending institutions. And I think this is a great way for us to give people the opportunity that they may need. But I also want to make sure that we're doing this in the most responsible manner possible.
Yeah, just like for terms of communication of the loan. I know that is in here, but just spelling that out a little bit more clearly before we go public, search applications would be useful, because I agree.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to follow up briefly on thank you for I was going to follow up, and I understood deferred loans to be you don't make payments and you don't accrue interest because the house is planned for sale within a certain period of time. What I was advocating for earlier is a period after the disbursement of the loan. If you sell the house within a period after the disbursement of the loan has to be paid back in its entirety at time of sale, 3 years or whatever it is. Wiring that in, writing that into the program itself.
That is, that's how the lien position works.
Okay.
So that is kind of by default.
Okay.
What would happen.
Thank you.
So I want to, and I apologize, I may have misread. I understood the underwriting fee, it's $2,500 to underwrite the loan.
For an amortized loan.
For an amortized loan. I understood that it was the borrower paying the $2,500. That is not the case?
So the way we have structured this, again, it's up to you, is that comes, because if you went to a bank and you took out the loan, you might not pay the $2,500 fee, you would pay the interest back to the bank. And that's where they would get their money.
At market rate?
At market rate. And so in this situation, the interest goes back into the loan fund to repay that amount. And so it's coming out of the loan fund, and then, so if you took out a $10,000 loan
Well, that's where I'm struggling. So let's say, quick math, we make 10 loans at $20,000. So 200,000 goes out of the fund, and it's earning interest at a maximum of 3%. We have made 10 loans times $2,500 underwriting fee per loan. 25,000 goes out of the fund. So we just spent $25,000 to underwrite those loans. In our wildest dreams, we're going to make $7,500 in interest annually. We're going to deplete the fund. The more loans we make, the further backwards the fund will go. So I think there's got to be a little, I think we got to go through some math and some scenarios because, and I'm not begrudging you, Angie, I'm not begrudging you the fee. It takes work to underwrite these loans, but I think it might be fair to say to the borrower, you pay half, we pay half. We are here to help you. And in that regard, I am a hard no on underwriting a loan for someone who can go to a bank. That would be like me having dinner at my home and then going to a free buffet at the homeless shelter. That's not why this fund is there. So I'm getting a little tense, so don't mind me. But no, I mean, I want to help people who can't get help. And especially if the city of Barre is paying a $2,500 underwriting fee, hell no. You know, I'm a hard no on that, folks. I mean, you may have the 4 votes, but I want to help people who are good and honest and good community members, but hey, something went wrong and they can't get financing at a bank. So we're here to help.
So let me give you 2 things real quick. So one, appreciate all of that, agree with you completely. And it's Barre City's loan. You can structure who qualifies in any way that you would like to, as long as it's legal. We could use that credit score the opposite way. We pull that credit report and say, yeah, getting traditional financing is going to be really difficult for you, or you are never going to be able to afford traditional financing with the current interest rates, or whatever that is.
Or show us a letter from a bank saying that, I'm sorry, you're a nice person, but you didn't qualify. So show us that a bank has turned you down for financing.
So again, the city can decide whatever is important to them there. We totally support. On the loan fees, like we did, and it's been a minute, because when I first looked at this, I was like, ooh, I don't know. But doing the math, like over a 10-year loan for $20,000, I think you do get your money back in interest. And just note that you only pay the fees if the applicant doesn't also qualify for GMHR. So say someone comes in, they make 70% of area median income, and they have $40,000 worth of work that needs to be done. $20,000 will come from GMHR, $20,000 will come from the city of Barre, and there will be no fees charged to the applicant or the city of Barre because they're all paid for by GMHR. So not every applicant is going to have this fee. In fact, I suspect you're going to have a fair number who are going to be under that income level. There's no way to know, but that it might split kind of naturally anyway, if that helps you at all in your calculations.
It would help me a great deal if I knew we were helping people who couldn't qualify for bank finance. I just really struggle with paying a $2,500 application fee for someone who could go to a bank.
And what I'm hearing from everybody is that's everyone's priority, that nobody sitting here wants to make loans to people who have access to traditional financing.
And I don't want to, you know, I mean, it's a loan process. It should be friendly, it should be factual, not looking to put anyone through the ringer. But again, it's a simple question. Okay, you need a $20,000 loan. Show us that a credit union or a bank turned you down, that you don't have any other options other than us.
I think one thing that we talked about a lot in this discussion about this very thing was, first of all, it's called the LMI, but it's called AMI now, is fairly high because it is Washington County. So 80% of that is not, it's not, you know, a huge income, but it's more forgiving than I remember when, you know, years ago. Things are very different. So the thing is that we said, you know, probably a lot of our loans are going to be in the same area as the GMHR loans, and we might be able to enhance those loans. And then nobody's paying the fee. But the other concern was, when you talk about the missing middle, where there are people who do make just a bump up above that, and there's not a whole lot available for them. It's the bump that they need. So I agree with you that I don't think that we're going to be seeing a bulk of those loans being in that sector, but we didn't want to forget that sector.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree with everything you said. Mr. Anthony?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. 3 key words, qualification. I totally agree. If you have alternative sources for the funds, then you don't need this city underwritten business. The second key word is owner occupied. And the third is an issue touched on by Councilor Guston. As it happens in the property transfer tax, if you don't hold it for a certain period of time, you pay. And so I would be in favor of some kind of recapture if you are in the business of not being an owner occupant for a particular agreed upon period of time. Thanks.
Thank you. Amy Gelford?
Yeah, thanks. I was just going to say, I had mentioned the USDA Rural Development Program, and it's both a loan and a grant program, just so people are aware of it. And I feel like this is in some ways recreating something that maybe already exists, but people don't know about. For folks who are over 62, they do grants instead of loans. And both the loan and the grant program are for what USDA defines as very low income, which for Washington County is $48,400. Their loans can actually go up to $40,000 and their grants can go up to $10,000. And those can be combined. They have a longer loan repayment, lower interest rates, and a couple other features. But they do have that language about the repayment of grants if it's sold in less than 3 years. And they have terminology about not being able to get affordable credit elsewhere. So I'll stick that in the chat. I know the chat is mostly supposed to be for technical issues, but just in case anyone wants to look at that in terms of the way USJRD does it.
And I should just state for the record, we do, when we're helping folks figure out what financing and what loans they need, we do pull in the USDA loans. So most everybody who goes through our program gets the USDA grant at least, in addition to whatever else we're offering.
Councilor Deering?
Just curious if anybody in the room might be able to tell us who would traditionally pay for these fees? Would it be the person who's getting the loan? I know that most of the times that I've gotten loans, the people that I'm getting the money from don't normally pay the fees that are acquired. So in your experience, Angie, or maybe anyone else who's got experience with this, do other organizations pay those fees?
Yes and no. It's not an uncomplicated answer. If you go to a credit union, for example, and you get a personal loan, there's certainly an underwriting cost.
Sure.
The credit union is not going to charge you 1 or 2 or 3%. They're probably, in this day and age with prime at, 8, prime is at 8 point, I lose track. Is it 8.25 or 8.5? I think it's 8.5. But with prime at 8.5, they're probably going to charge you 10% for an unsecured personal loan. So on a $10,000 loan, they're making $1,000 a year, and they're likely not charging you the underwriting fee. Mortgages are all over the place. Someone may go to get a mortgage. There are mortgages that have points. So you pay 2 points, you pay a lower interest rate. So it's not uncomplicated, but I think our structure, honestly, as I look at this loan fund and I look at a $20,000 loan, and I think about prime being 8.5%, and I think, okay, a 5% interest rate is a bargain.
Right.
If we had 5% mortgage rates right now, we'd see a lot more housing activity. So I think, I like the work you've done. I don't mean to sit here and be critical. I'm just reacting to the work. And my thought is, as I said, make sure that I agree with Mr. Anthony in terms of owner occupied. That's folks who want to help. But I think the interest rates could even tick up a little bit. Not to 10%, certainly not even to prime. But if you look at the additional cost to the borrower and what that cumulative effect is over, say, a 20-year period, I mean, it's huge, and the city would really be able to help a lot more people, and that's what I'm interested in. Councilor Stockwell.
We're not trying to make a ton of money on this. We're trying to make possible for people who are struggling to have a little more security. So I think we keep the interest rates low. We try to help as many people as we can, and we give this a try. So it sounds like I'm kind of not sure right now where we are in terms of agreement, but it sounds like we have agreement. We know that if we do if we're helping someone to prepare their house for sale, that money comes back when it's sold. So that money comes back quickly. And you're right, that's a good thing for us to do. I think we keep the interest rates where they are so that people who are struggling, people who are middle income, people who are working class, people who maybe inherited a house that's a wreck, have a way to make the house better, and we give it a go.
Yes, Councilor Wozniak.
So I think that on the fees, on the underwriting fees, I think that, yes, this loan, one of the intents of this loan is to help folks who can't get access to other resources. But it does also feel kind of icky to say, we'll give you this loan, but first you have to go get rejected by a traditional bank. That doesn't quite feel equitable to me. But I think I'm also hearing, based off the GMHR stuff, that the team at Downstreet is going to be able to look at these things by a case-by-case basis and have the understanding and faith of the city, because Downstreet's been a great partner for the city historically, that you're not just going to throw $2,500 out the door when there might be other options for getting that covered, and be a good fiscal agent for the fund. And then on the interest rates, I'd be fine taking them up marginally, like maybe instead of 1, 2, 3, we do 2, 3, 4, or 3, 4, 5. And that's not in an attempt to make money by any stretch of the imagination, but just to keep, the more we can grow the fund, the more people the fund can help. And when you're looking at monthly payments, the difference between 2.5% and 4% of this kind of money is relatively minimal. So I'd be fine taking up the interest rates a little bit. I don't think that we need to go crazy here, maybe 1 percentage point apiece. And then on the fees, I'm fine with the explainer that we were just given about GMHR. I'm okay leaving the 2,500 fee structured the way it is now, understanding that the majority of people who are going to be eligible for this money.
Anticipated.
Yes, right. We don't know that. But how the rest of it is structured, I think the rest of the structure of this program accounts for that. And some of those checks and balances, for lack of a better word, are built in.
Councilor Guston.
I can see upping interest rates if we add, say, another category at 100% AMI, it goes to 4%. Just to increase, do as Councilor Wozniak suggests, keep replenishing the fund and also keep it a little bit still below market rate, as the mayor was saying. And I want to push back just like the tiniest bit on owner occupied. I would love to see this available not to a landlord with a 6-unit building, but to someone, say, who, if we could make sure that the definition of owner occupied, as we all understand it, includes someone who lives in their house and rents out the other half of their house as an apartment or something like that. I just want to make sure that it's not like sole owner occupied, only single family home, but owner occupied, and they use it to fix up an apartment and then add housing. This would also be available for that.
Yeah, so it would be owner occupied multi-unit.
Would like it to.
GMHR currently does allow
Yeah.
for that.
I just want to make sure we're all on the same table about,
So we're probably a little stuck on I'm really a hard no on, yes, you do have to get a rejection letter from a bank. Because some people may be getting a free $2,500 fee. And if I'm going to take money from taxpayers and say, hey, we want to help you, okay, I need to make sure that you couldn't get help somewhere else. Heck, the way it's currently structured, there'd be a lot of people who could probably, if I could get traditional financing and I qualified for traditional financing, mortgage rates this week are about 7%. If I could get a 3% loan and not have to pay the fees, sure, I'd be coming to see Angie. But that's gross, because I can get help somewhere else, and someone who really needs the help, I wish we had 2.5 million. We don't. We have 250,000. We're going to be able to help 12 to 13 people. And I just want to make sure that those 12 to 13 people can't receive it, funding anywhere else. Counselor, yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
If in fact the qualification is that you have to be a certain level of the median income, doesn't that preclude that problem? That if people have to qualify and they have to qualify because of their lack of income, then I would think it'd be really hard for them to get a standard loan anyway, if they're paying for what you pay for to stay alive.
Not necessarily, because someone with a $50,000 income looking for a $20,000 loan amortized at 3% over 10 years, with a good credit history and a favorable debt-to-income ratio, could certainly qualify for a credit union loan. I mean, loans are pretty competitive right now. And I just want to make sure, again, if we had 2.5 million, you have 250,000. We're probably going to be able to make, like I said, 10 to 15 loans out of this fund initially. As you look at a 10-year amortization period at the current rates of interest, we might be able to make an additional $20,000 in loans annually. That's being able to help 25 people over a 10-year period. I just want to make sure that all of those 25 people, going to a bank stinks. It's work, it is. But at least someone can go to a bank and they can get a yes answer, as opposed to the 25 people who I know couldn't get a yes answer and were worthy and were part of this community. And we want to help those who, we're not saying we're the last resort, but we just want to make sure that you've exhausted all other avenues before you're accepting a loan, accepting an underwriting fee, accepting a lower interest rate, and accepting a loan that could have helped your neighbor when you could have gone to a bank. That's all.
Amy quoted the USDA regs around not able to get affordable credit. And we use USDA, and I'm sorry, Cheryl, if she were here, would know 100% what exactly that meant and how we evaluated that. But that means we definitely know how to evaluate unable to access affordable credit. So that's something we could definitely put into the underwriting the same way that the USDA does, and then determine it the way that the USDA determines it. Would that be comfortable for you?
Councilor Stockwell.
I think if someone is making 50,000 a year, we should help them make their house more secure and their living situation more secure, so that in fact in the future they can help someone else. Maybe they can do an ADU. But also, I'm fine with bumping up the 120% of the AMI to 4%. But I think maybe we should call the question, because we're probably not going to finally agree. But I think we have
No question to be called. Yeah. Councilor Wozniak.
So I think this is where I think we might just have a good faith disagreement here, in that I don't think that this fund is, I'm not intending this fund to be the matter of last resort. I'm intending this fund to be a proactive city fund that is going out of, I think we are going out of our way to help people. And I think in 2024, with the cost of living where it is, ponying up $2,500 is not going to be an easy ask for the folks who are going to qualify for this fund. And, interacting with banks is not just work. It is also deeply stigmatizing. It is also the systems themselves are deeply inequitable. So it's not as easy as just filling out. For some folks, it's not as, speaking from personal experience, it is not easy to deal with all of the very real trauma that growing up poor does to somebody. Telling them to go to a bank and be rejected, it is not kind. And I think this loan fund is, I'm intending this loan fund to be an act of kindness from the city to help the people in our community. So I think that my suggestion would be that we've given Angie a lot, and I've watched her take a bunch of notes, so I would suggest that go back, incorporate some of the notes we've talked about into this document, and then come back in a couple weeks. And at that point, maybe we call it, maybe it's a 6-1 vote, with all due respect, Mr. Mayor.
I'm fine with that.
Then I'll work with Tuss to determine if the housing task force needs first pass at that. I'm not sure what no, I think just bring it back.
I think we can just,
I think, I think we've
Councilor
done our
Deering?
work.
I was just curious why the housing task force would need to take a pass at it before us.
Evidently you don't.
That's why.
We were charged with, and doing this vetting.
Okay.
And then bring it forward.
Right, I remember.
yeah.
And it's at your pleasure if you want us to do that again.
Counselor Spalding also has her hand still.
Oh, sorry, Councilor Spalding.
Thank you. I guess I'm going to piggyback on Counselor Wazizak's question, and because I'm not clear, do we need to approve this tonight, or can we send it back and then have the, flesh out some more of these details that we've been talking about and revisit in a couple weeks and agree to move forward at that point?
Sure, I'm
Okay.
fine with that.
Okay.
And it's, so we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Okay, awesome.
Well, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, well, actually stay seated. I'm
Thank you,
gonna skip
Tess.
around just a little bit if you don't mind though, Angie, because we did have a public hearing warned for 7 PM. I have been watching the online screen. A couple of people dropped off, but no one joined towards 7 PM looking for this. But there's a mandatory public hearing, council, that was warned for 7 PM. This is the closeout of the VCDP grant implemented by ACCD, the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. Yeah, EFG, implementation grant. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Barre C 51, Barre Recovery Residence. So is there anyone online or in the audience who would wish to comment on this project? No, so I'm hearing none. So the hearing was warned, the hearing was held. The record will reflect that no one wished to address the issue, so I will declare the hearing closed. And council, we will move on to item 8B on our agenda, and that is to approve Downstreet's request for city approval to access DCF funding for the Quality Inn project.
All right, thank you so much for your consideration of this request. So just to clarify, Downstreet has received full funding to purchase and do some basic renovations for the Quality Inn. That's already happened. This request is to access new state funding that has come out specific to emergency shelters that may or may, the Quality Inn, because it is a hotel, it's not even very clear at this point if it will qualify. But in the case that it does qualify for these additional funds, we would apply, and then the state housing kind of pool for funding, there'd be more money for housing. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. So that's really the only request, is that we're asking Barre City to approve that application because it does require municipal approval. But I am happy to answer any questions about this project generally, or anything specific about funding.
So the acquisition cost? for
The
hotel?
acquisition cost is $5 million, and then there is.
For the $5 million for the Quality Inn?
Quality Inn. Hotels have strong value
Did we get
right
the
now.
budget thrown in for like a quarter?
You know, we asked the budget end about selling, and they weren't interested.
So $5 million acquisition cost. So I guess, my concern, Angie, and I go back to grand list. What's happened in the city, what is continuing to happen in the city. That property is currently assessed for 8 and change, Nicholas, 800 and
Yeah, and I know the tax amount. I don't-
$36,000, so I think the city collects approximately $38,000 annually in property taxes. Rooms and meals tax, we have local options tax, that would be totally a guess, but I don't think $12,000 would be an unreasonable number, $100,000 gross revenue. If you just look at the number of rooms and occupancy and, so I guess my question going forward is, and I realize this likely will happen without the council's support of this or not, but, it's important to me years ago when we supported Capstone, and Hal Cohen sat just where you're sitting now, smaller table, and asked for our support. I just said, Hal, we can't afford to go backwards. We understand that you're gonna make that building a real model and you're gonna be serving people, and we understand that, but I think at the time, the assessed value of that property was somewhere around $500,000, and we entered into a pilot agreement with Capstone, whereby the city of Barre would not go backwards. We weren't interested in, and we wanted to support their good work and your good work by saying, okay, when you improve the quality or we're not gonna say, well, you paid $5 million for it, that's fair market value. So we'll assess it at $5 million, and you can pay the city of Barre $130,000 a year in property taxes. That's not what I'm saying. But Angie, can I have some sort of assurance that we're not gonna go backwards, that we're not gonna collect? I'll leave the $12,000 in local options tax on the table, but my position on any project is we simply can't afford to go backwards at this time.
So are you thinking, Tom, the 36 or 38,000?
I'm sorry?
Are you thinking the 36 or 38,000 is what you're wanting to collect?
Well,
when
we
talk
would,
about
what
not
we
going
did in the case of Capstone is we kept the assessment the same. So we said, look, we're not going up, we're not going down. So if it's 38,000 and property taxes go up by 5% next year, it would be, 38,000 times 1.05.
So I mean, that obviously is not related to this in any way, but I am happy to have that conversation. We also are residents of the city of Barre. We care very much about city of Barre operations. This isn't housing, it's a hotel. It's a different thing than what we might ordinarily do. And I totally respect your concerns there, and very, very happy to discuss that with you and or Nicholas as we move forward with this project. I did budget to continue taxes in this project. For that very reason. It's different than the housing projects when we come forward with Seminary Street, which is currently a parking lot and not generating a lot of tax revenue. That's going to look different, but we think of this project differently and do want to support the community where it exists.
And that's, and again, it's about, my concern is that too much generosity can sort of tie our hands in the future, so that, we want to keep supporting projects like this and the projects that you're doing. But if we're too generous on the front end, we don't have any money on the back end to continue that good work, because the city's just strapped for cash.
Yeah, and a lot of what Down Street has done in Barre has been, the empty parking lot or the vacant building, or, and that's, you're not going backwards, we're actually adding to the.
On those, absolutely not.
And I understand in this situation, it looks a little bit different. So yes, I am happy to negotiate the pilot, obviously completely separate from this, which isn't, I guess those two aren't related directly as far as I'm concerned, but I do support Barre City's tax revenue.
I'm not sure, Councilor Deering, do you have your hand up?
I was just curious about the business model and what the profits are going to be used for renting out the rooms.
So the purchase of the Quality Inn, it will remain a hotel. It will continue to operate a hotel as a hotel, but it will be a nonprofit owned hotel. So just, a slight difference there.
Sure.
We do intend right now, the Quality Inn primarily houses families in need of emergency shelter. So that won't change. We're working with the state, who will pay for the units, and they will place families that qualify for the GA hotel program in those units. So none of those things will change. It'll be kind of like what it is right now. Yep. But we are Down Street, and we care about things in kind of a different way. So The income that we receive will be to cover operations, and then we'll have 24/7 support services staffing. So that's important to us. We know crises happen at any time. We want to make sure that we've got staff on site that are able to address that. And then we are partnering with an array of community service providers to ensure deeper partnerships that are happening on site. And we're going to paint the exterior.
Yay.
If nothing else, the exterior will be painted. So that's generally our model. If there's any cash at the end of the year, it will go into reserves for the building because it is, it's an older hotel.
Yep.
So as long as it's operating as a hotel, it's going to need those upgrades. And then our hope is that somewhere in the future, we won't need emergency shelter anymore. And this is a site that we could convert into housing, but I don't think we see that as a recent or a near term.
So with this particular program, do you see that after the first year that the profits essentially then will be able to go help more of the programs that you guys have?
So right now, the way it's structured, they would actually go into a reserve specific to this property to ensure that if all the heaters go next year, we've got a way to pay for those.
Sure.
So that is how we're looking at it. But because we're doing 24/7 support services staffing, then we've got a hotel director / manager, and then we have just a daytime services person.
Sure.
So it's a pretty, I won't say it's a tight budget, but there's not going to be a ton of leftover.
No, I understand. And even just calculating it $100 per room and saying about 30 per rooms, we'll say, it was about $1 million a year in income.
Yes, and so that is actually what we are hoping to do with the state is run out 30, there's 42 units currently, so 30 of them around $100 a night. And then when you do the staffing model and the operations, and you're thinking about things like, janitorial and pest control and, incremental upgrades, those things really add up. So that's about where we'll land.
You guys will see about $1 million in need.
For
It's gonna so at $100 a room, over the course of the year at 30 rooms is $1 million, 1.08 million.
Yep.
So I'm just asking what the operating costs essentially are gonna be, and then the gap that's going to be from your operating costs to what you guys have brought in, that money going forward year after year, is it just gonna sit in the fund? Do you guys have plans to?
So the way things usually work, definitely in affordable housing, I've never run a hotel before, is you put those early dollars, say you're putting them in reserves. And the way when I look at the performer for this one, around year 7 or 8, it no longer covers all of its costs. And so those reserves that we've deposited in the early years will be used to either cover operating expenses or more likely take care of repairs. I mean, we're not doing a super extensive remodel of the Quality Inn, so there's going to be work that needs to be done. So that is how those funds, and they'll stay with that project. They don't come to Downstreet. So this isn't a profit that we're making, even to do really great things with it, which is of course what we would do with it. But at this point, it's staying with this project.
And have there been any upgrades to the Quality Inn since they've had the GA program going on there?
I don't. There's none that I'm aware of.
Okay. I'm just curious because of all the money that's been spent there, wondering if they had reinvested any of that within the property.
It's possible.
Take a ride by.
I have been. Okay. I have no more questions. I appreciate you, Angie. I really do. Mr. Anthony?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I'm sympathetic with Executive Director Harbin having to answer questions that frankly seem to be focused on her. But for me, it's a more global question that you, Mr. Mayor, have identified. Going forward, we really need a global solution to the fact that we want many of these social services. But the long and the short of it is we still cannot face a declining fiscal squeeze. The manager very articulately a week ago said part of our problem was we've been eating middle management along the way to keep property taxes lower. Well, the reason we've been doing that is because the grand list has not risen appropriately. And part of that is because of stabilization and pious and charitable and various other schemes, some legislatively mandated. And I understand that that has to be part of the discussion, but I really think going forward, we need a theory so that we apply what our expectations are for a wide array of organizations, not just downstreet, but here's what we need if you want to participate in the community of the city of Barre with your service, whether you have exemption or you don't. Here's the theory. Here's what we expect for payment in lieu of taxes, or if we go for some kind of exemption legislatively that we can literally assess in an alternative manner. But I want to be even-handedly about this. That's I guess where I am. I focused 20 years ago on going after land values that are occupied with folks who are doing good work and forget the structure. But again, the time was not ripe for that. So it fell on dead ears. But I think the time is now ready to have that debate and figure out what our calculation would be, so we're not accused of either special treatment or discriminatory treatment towards any particular social service activity in the city of Barre. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Spaulding?
I think this is a fabulous idea. I have some questions just about the model, and maybe I'm hoping that you can answer them. Is the idea, I'm reading just the little blurb that you've given us. It says that you're going to primarily rent rooms to individuals and families with urgent unmet housing needs. Does that mean that there will be some rooms rented to people who are just passing through, who are just, travelers, if you will, or?
I'm not sure if you are a traveler just passing through and you booked a room at the Quality Inn, you'd be particularly thrilled with that choice. And we want to be sure that we're honest and candid about what it is we're doing. What we don't have a plan yet for those additional 12 units, but I know that we have some community needs that we may be able to meet in that space.
Okay. And my other question is, because you do say that you're going to rent them to individuals and families, I'm curious, you said most of the people that are renting right now are families. And will you continue to prioritize families since there's really no other place for families to go?
So this is one of 2 hotels in Washington County where DCF will place families. That is my understanding. And we will be accepting their placements. And so we anticipate that will continue to be families.
Okay, fabulous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could some of the rooms become permanent housing, stable housing rather than transitional housing over time?
So that would require a change of zoning, I think, or a change of use for the building. So that's not that that's out of range. That's just a little more work and us coming back to talk to you in the future about that.
Councilor Deering?
I know that we've talked about places for people to go while they're fixing their places from flood damage or things like that. Is this something that you might be interested in pursuing with the city? I don't necessarily know with the city, but we have people that are potentially looking to upgrade or to do repairs for their places that would require them to be out of their homes in order to do those. Some could potentially even be working with Barre Up. Is that a collaboration that you think kind of feel out and provide a need or provide a service, for that need?
Yeah, I deeply love that idea. I think it's an awesome idea. We are anticipating an occupied rehab, and we don't know exactly what that will look like yet. So it would be, we'll probably be purchasing around November, and then starting construction on that occupied rehab maybe in January. I don't know how long that will take, and I don't know how many units we'll do at a time. We are prioritizing the 30 set aside for the state, but I'm definitely open to that idea if it works out timing-wise. It's a great one.
Any other questions? So what do you need for us? You need to have the motion, the appropriate motion would be to approve. Actually, it would be more a no objection to you accessing DCF funding for the Quality Inn project?
We need municipal approval for the application.
I see.
I'll make the
Do you have-
motion.
I'm sorry?
I'll make a motion to approve
Okay.
that.
Second,
Do we have an application in front of us? I didn't get that in my packet.
So it was just capital funding for the project, but no, I didn't provide that.
Oh, okay, so it's not, is there an application?
There is an application through DCF for capital funding for any project that provides shelter for people experiencing homelessness.
So there is an
There is
application,
an
but we
application.
don't have it.
And you do not
But
have
we're
the
being
application.
asked to approve it.
Yes, and
That's tough.
and it's okay if you opt not to.
And I'm not, it's not a game, Angie, but you're asking me to approve something I haven't read, and I'm,
Oversight on my part.
look, I love Karen more than anything else in the world, but when she says, here, sign this, I read it, okay?
We have a motion and a second, though?
Yes, we do. And I guess the rest of you can do what you want. I can't approve a motion. I cannot approve something that I haven't even seen. Yes.
It's just a question about exactly what the wording of what council would be doing is what we are doing simply essentially issuing a letter of support for your ownership of the Quality Inn, or are we issuing a letter of approval for this very specific grant for which you are seeking funding?
It's this very specific grant. It's not just, because it's adding, I mean, in theory, I could be coming to you with any building saying, hey, I want to start housing homeless folks in this building, and I'd like your approval to do that. And that's what I would take then as part of the application. The situation's a little odd because we have full funding for the building, so this is just a way to get more affordable housing money back to the state. And there are already homeless folks living in the building.
Sure.
So it's-
So how time sensitive is it?
The application is due July 10th. If the city doesn't vote, I won't fill out the application.
Today's the 2nd. We can do a special meeting. I mean, hey, if the council wants to approve it, I just,
That's all.
I can't in good conscience not do my job and approve something, especially Council Gusson, you asked a great question. It's specific.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen it. And I'm saying, yes, I approve this document I haven't even read.
Well, but we're not the ones applying for the funding, Downstreet is. This is just saying that the municipality is aware that Downstreet is applying for this funding, and we're okay with that.
Yes. that-
Well, I've
there'll
heard
be
two different
homeless
things.
people In the quality.
This is why I'm trying to be very clear about what the wording of what the city would be doing with a motion would be. Is it as Councilor Wozniak just characterized, we're aware that you're applying for this funding, we are comfortable with you applying in concept for this funding?
I think it's, I mean, it literally says municipal approval for the application. That's the only thing in the wording. My understanding, though, is the spirit of it is the municipality is aware that we're going to be providing shelter services for people experiencing homelessness, and they're okay with that. And you could approve a letter to that effect.
Yeah.
And then you could use that specific wording.
And like I said, if there are 4 votes in approval, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I just can't.
Yeah, lesson learned.
It's, I'm sorry, is there any way do you have it on your phone or anything?
I mean, yeah, I could shoot it over to you real quick, but yes, would you like to?
How about we do a 5-minute recess?
Have you already written the grant, or?
No.
Okay, so there's no grant proposal to look at. What we'd be looking at is, in theory, if we did this, in theory, is the concept of the application.
Yeah, it's just a DCF RFP requesting funds to provide shelter services for folks experiencing homelessness.
Okay. And it is due by the 10th?
It's due by the 10th.
And you intend to submit it when?
I mean, I could submit it on the 10th, but in good conscience, I wouldn't ask the city to hold a special meeting for this application.
In good conscience, that's why we're here. We just did it last week for liquor licenses. I think
I know,
this
but I
is a
heard
little
you
more
just
important.
say that you weren't going to ask everybody to come back next week. It's how you.
I mean, for a brief 5-minute meeting.
Zoom on Friday again.
mean-
I'm fine voting tonight. I think we're just like, I completely understand what you're saying, Mr. Mayor, and I'm not trying to dismiss.
It's an RFP from
your-
DCF for
right,
downstream.
For something that's
This
been
is
So
happening.
like-
describe it to me. You've seen it?
Nope.
'Cause
but
I'm
I've
being
read-
asked to approve. Look, I just do my
Okay, then.
job, and I do it as well as I can.
Well, yeah, but don't.
All those in favor of the motion
imply
is presented,
that-
please signify by saying aye.
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 Oh, I'm sorry, did you have something to add, Counselor Spalding?
Well, the only thing I was going to add is that I could understand why the municipality is being asked for approval, because imagine if Down Street was going to buy a place that wasn't already
Right.
housing unhoused people. But the fact that this hotel is going to continue to operate as it is, I think that's the main issue. We don't have to pay a dime, and Down Street's going to manage it. And so that's why I made the motion, because I think that it doesn't, I mean, yes, we can do all of the jump through all the hoops and look at the application, but the reality is that the application is just so that we can continue to provide homes for families who do not have housing. And so I think it's important for us to remember that and not get caught up in the bureaucracy of it, if you will. So that's why I made the motion.
Understood. Oh, I'm sorry.
Can I
Mr.
just, I actually am also uncomfortable issuing a blanket approval for a grant that we haven't seen yet. What I can see us doing tonight, and maybe this would satisfy your understanding of the grant, is saying, issuing basically resolution or whatever it is, a letter of support for a different kind of grant. The city of Barre understands the plans presented by Down Street Housing for their purchase of the Quality Inn and is in support of that project.
That would do it.
That doesn't necessarily.
There's a motion pending, so parliamentary procedure. As a courtesy, I apologize. I didn't notice Counselor Spalding's hand up, so I wanted I wanted her to have the opportunity to discuss it. So there was a vote. Who voted in favor of the motion? And who voted against? Motion carries. You have your 4 votes.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Angie.
Thank you.
Yes.
And thanks for your
Angie,
work.
would you mind providing council with a copy of the grant when it is completed, just for the record?
Yes, and to be clear, we're still waiting to hear if we qualify for the grant. So this is why I haven't started working on it yet.
I see.
This is just to make sure we can apply if we need to apply. But yes, I will
The Barre
provide
City Council just approved a grant before we even know if we, okay.
you not for grants.
No, we did not. That's
Quality
not
Inn.
what just happened.
Approve the submission. Okay. Angie, thanks for your good work. I appreciate you. Council number 9, upcoming business. Unless there's anything, I mean, we do have to talk about Prospect Heights and how we're moving that along, the current composition of the group, and the opinion of the manager and the mayor that that group be kept intact, so to speak. Obviously, we'll be meeting more frequently. We do need to start thinking about pushing the Vermont Emergency Management grant applications out to the general public. Next time we meet, some of the things you want to think about with that, they can accept, so someone who owns a residential or commercial building can in fact submit an application through the city. What I'd like you to think about in the next couple of weeks, I think it's absolutely appropriate, if we're going to do that for someone, that we charge an appropriate fee. So for example, if, because it takes staff time. So the city, even though we're going to ask the owner of the property to complete the application so that the city doesn't have to complete it. So they will, we'll have printouts, they'll have to put everything in. The city may actually be submitting it, someone may be typing it. But if the recipient is successful, it's up to the city to make sure that those grant funds are properly managed. We have that conversation. We approved, another position. We heard the manager talk about, eating up staff time. So again, nothing you got to think about, but I think it's absolutely appropriate. If we're going to provide a service, I think it's appropriate for the city to be compensated. So you just need to think about that.
There are two pots of money, correct, from VEM for people elevating their house?
Actually, it's all part of the,
But
Not for elevation, elevation's different.
elevation's different, correct?
right. So there's, there's certain things, and obviously the city would let people know that here's the application, here's what it needs to look like. So for example, to your point, if they didn't have an elevation certificate, that's not our issue. The staff would look at the application and say it's not, and if I'm getting it wrong, just jump in. But they'd look at the application and say, I'm sorry, this isn't complete, we can't submit this. My concern is we have a lot of work. We're applying for grant funds as well through the city, and obviously that's taking a lot of staff time. I think it's the right thing to do because it is available to someone who owns a home and they want to elevate it. These grant funds are available. So on one hand, I feel an obligation to let our residents know these funds are available to you, and we will submit these applications on your behalf, but I think there have to be certain parameters. I think we need to let people know up front that they're going to be doing the heavy lifting. So just something I need to have you think about as we roll. First of all, how do you all feel about some sort of campaign to let people know that these funds are available? Okay, so you're okay with that? Okay, so I'll work with Nicholas. We'll get to work on that in the next couple of weeks, and then, like I said, we'll come up with some sort of parameters, and we'll get that to you plenty before the meeting so you can talk about it. Anything else the council would like to see on an upcoming agenda? Yes.
I would just say that Councilor Wozniak and I were just discussing earlier that we took quite a lot of notes on the draft flood plan that we presented, both feedback from fellow councilors and members of the public, and have had some outreach separately as well, and that we would like to sort of update that, add pieces to that, continue to move that forward. I'm looking at Councilor Wozniak for a nod, maybe in 2 weeks. That might be something to bring back for 2 weeks.
Okay,
time
we
if
can do that
council
as well.
is interested in that.
And lastly, I'm sorry,
Just a
go ahead.
reminder, Mayor and Council, that we will have the interim zoning hearing that Janet and I mentioned a couple weeks ago to update regulations for Act 250 change, or development changes, housing bill changes. So.
And the manager and I were discussing, because other communities are, and it was asked by a member of the media, what the city of Barre was doing on the anniversary of the flood. My thought was nothing, because we've been doing it every day. In the days since the flood, neighbors have been helping neighbors. When you look at sort of, I think about commemorating it. I don't know that that's necessarily appropriate. One thing that does resonate with me is that one of our citizens died during the flood, and it might be nice to recognize that individual and remember that in some way. Other than that, we hadn't really planned on anything, so I just wanted to run that by all of you. Yes.
Yeah, there are some community plans.
Oh, yeah,
being
there are
made
different organizations, but no city,
Yeah.
no official
Right.
city ceremony or recognition.
And I also like it. It feels like if there's an official city one, then you might feel bad missing it, right? Like, because it's the official one. I think allowing people to commemorate it in their own way. If they want to go out to a community event, great. If they just want to sit at home and reflect, great. So I think that's.
And most of these organizations have been out there commemorating it every day since the flood on some level. So, I looked at what the city might do, and I'm like, I don't think we could really add anything to that. So, like I said, other than remembering some sort of way to remember a citizen who was lost during the flood, I don't think you wouldn't have anything else on deck. Okay, with that, roundtable, Councilor Stockwell.
I went to see Just Getting By, the documentary at Paramount. It was a good documentary. I mean, that was my work, so it wasn't like, this is shocking news. And I'm worried that the people for whom it would be shocking news will never see it. But it was well done, and I thank Capstone for providing that opportunity.
Counselor Wozniak,
Pass.
Counselor Shambo,
Pass.
Counselor Guston.
On a lighter note, I woke up this morning at Molly Stark State Park in Wilmington on the southern end of Vermont, and am reminded in this 100-year anniversary year of the Vermont State Park system that they are really one of the treasures of the state. And here in Barre, we have a number close by to us and further afield that folks can access. So get out there and go camping and use a state park.
Counselor Deering.
Just thankful to celebrate another 4th of July. Really going to take some time for myself to reflect on and what that means to me, and just, how I go forward in life.
Fantastic.
Counselor Spalding.
Oh, I'm sorry, Counselor Spalding. Thank you.
Thank you. I also attended the Just Getting By Bess O'Brien, and I came away probably with a little bit of a different take because this hasn't been my work. And I will say that it was sobering, and I would encourage anyone who hasn't seen it to please see it. I think it is informative and also really would be helpful for a lot of people to see it and understand that the people who are facing homelessness are people who are working hard every single day and trying to make ends meet, and they just can't. And I think that we often make a lot of generalizations about people, and this film helped to really illustrate that there are a lot of people who are going through a lot of hard things, and to just have some more empathy and respect for people, and to meet people where they're at. So thank you for Capstone for having that screening. I believe there are more screenings. I would encourage any of the counselors to make sure you watch it. Anyone watching to go on, just search Just Getting By Bess O'Brien and find out where there's screenings. And it's a very, very sobering documentary, and I appreciate that I had the opportunity to see it.
Thank you. Council, we don't have a need for an executive session. Motion to, yes, Miriam. Could you state your full name for the record if you have a question of the council?
This is Miriam Bendor. I'm
Thank you.
just checking in because I want to point out that one of the gentlemen in that movie, Just Getting By, is no longer with us.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn, council? And a second?
Second.
All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, we are adjourned.
Thank you. Good night.
Has anyone ever
Night.
voted against a motion to adjourn in the history of the world?